to start. No, you're good. All right, time 6:30. I'll call this meeting to order. Mr. Tucker, would you like to lead us in the invocation?
Bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you humbly and pray to you to provide us guidance as we do the work of our small town. We pray for blessings, and we always pray your name. Praise your name. We pray this in Christ's name. In Christ, amen.
Amen. All right, Ms. Lawrence, you want to listen to the pledges? All right. As I say in every meeting, rules of decorum are in effect. Basically means be adults, treat each other with respect when we get up here and speak. Next thing will be citizens' comments. First up will be Mr. Clay Moulter. Clay, if you'll step up to the podium, there's a button to turn that mic on. State your name and the address for the record, please.
My name is Clay Moulter. Address is 201 East FM 550 in McLendon-Chisholm. Okay. Thank you, Mayor, Council, esteemed City Manager, Secretary, all of the citizens here today with us. I want to talk about item 6.1, food trucks. Saw this on the agenda, a lot on social media with this item. I've got an interest. I think it would be great for the city if it's done in the right way. They're kind of popping up in some areas just here and there that I don't think is great for the city, but I think in a planned effort where the city's making money off of it, we can get stuff here a little quicker, maybe nicer stuff, but again, done in a really nice way. I think it'd be a good thing for the community and us to do stuff like Fate and some of these other surrounding cities are doing, take advantage. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Clay. All right. Next one, Mr. Mike Hatcher.
Thanks so much. My name is Mike Hatcher. Address is 271 South State Highway 205. Same thing as Mr. Moulter approached with the council and the city staff that, you know, we've seen what's going on social media with and right down the street from my property with the food trucks. And again, want to reiterate, like, I've seen this done right, and I've seen it done well, and it can really be a cool ad for the city. But like we all know, there's a right way and a wrong way to do things. And, you know, first of all, it needs to be something that brings value to our community. Somebody that, I'm not going to knock the only place we have to eat here in this town, but I would really like to have another option without driving all the way to Rockwall, or even getting a little. My business is in Rockwall, so I get tired of Rockwall too. So now I'm finding myself going to Terrell because they even have a little bit wider variety than Forney's, a little bit cookie cutter, kind of like Rockwall is. And so, you know, but we have an opportunity here, and I think the demand's there. I just think as people work together to make something that benefits the city, benefits the citizens, and like I said, should be an attraction. It should be something that could really be a positive thing. If y'all visited, like, I like the truck yard in Dallas, and there's a really cool one down in Houston, and you know, there's definitely some ways to do it. And I think from what I've seen on social media, they agree with what we're currently doing. It's not, nobody's benefiting except for the individuals. And, you know, just like a city or I'm a business owner, you know, we look for the win-win in any situation. And so it can't be one-sided. You know, everybody involved, all the parties involved need to, you know, benefit from it for it to be successful for the long run. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mike. All right. Since there are no other citizen comments for tonight, 6:35, citizens' comments are closed for the evening. Next thing up is the consent agenda. 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, and 5.4. I know that Shelley, the city secretary, did email me. There was a spelling error in the minutes for March 9th. She has caught it, just to make you aware of that. If there is if there is nothing that you want to pull from those 4 agenda items, I'll look for a motion to approve those 4 agenda items on the consent agenda.
To include items 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, and 5.4.
I've got a motion. Do I have a second? Okay. Any discussion? If not, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, moving on to 6.1, food trucks. Rick, I'll turn it over to you on this one.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Council. You do have a memorandum in your packet that we prepared to sort of put this issue before the council for your consideration. The basic questions that we want to try to get answered by the council, if you're ready to do so this evening, would be, one, the overall underlying question is there an interest on the part of the council with certain conditions to be agreed on as we move through the process, if you want to do it. But is there an interest in allowing food truck operations in the city? And if there is that interest, then we'd like to also discuss with you the mechanism we might use to make that happen. It is my recommendation, and that is city attorney and city planner, that at least initially that be done by a regulatory ordinance as opposed to a zoning ordinance. It might later be incorporated into the zoning ordinance, but it would give us a better opportunity to make tweaks in it and to make sure that it works for us before we embed it into our zoning ordinance. And if you determine whichever route, we will pursue that. And the third question would be, would you want to direct the staff to bring back recommendations to you on conditions under which food trucks would operate, if you want them, for you to look at and make a determination? There'll probably be some back and forth on that on the evening we discuss that, if we get to that point, in terms of what a food truck, what the minimum requirements ought to be, what the locational requirements ought to be, parking requirements, access requirements. There really aren't any options in terms of the need within our city. I don't believe of them being required to meet the state health regulations and stand for those inspections, which will be some cost to the city. However, that could be included in the permit cost.
Guys, when it comes to this particular item, it's the first item that we have on the agenda. I'm going to tell you that here recently there has been a lot of social media chatter over this particular item, particularly because of some food truck vendors that have been doing some things up here on 205 across from Kingsford. And some of that chatter on social media was well accepted and positive as far as having that option. Where it got a little heated was whether or not they were operating within legal limits, meaning were they operating within the city limits, were they operating properly with permitting and any other requirements to operate a food truck business. And that's where it got a little dicey. A lot of citizens out there within McLendon-Chisholm that want to see food trucks and they want to see those kind of options. And I think it's a good thing, but as the governing body for the city, as the city council and being responsible to the citizens here, it's only fair that we do it right. If we're going to allow something like a food truck, we have to have them follow the same requirements that are required to do that correctly and legally. Otherwise, it's a slap in the face to the current businesses that are doing it right, that operate within our city. And that's where it got a little dicey, because they may not have been doing that correctly. it's only fair to those like Chisholm Country Store is one that does offer through their business, is that they're doing things right and they're doing everything that's required of them by the city. Everybody else should too. Let's do it right. And I made that comment to people that were discussing the options up there. Was the city is not against having businesses. We want it done right. That's all we're asking. Is we want it done.
And when you say right, what does that mean? What are
Well,
you
there are
saying right?
When you look at something like a food truck, there are health inspections and stuff like that required. Right now, based on what current ordinances and all that we have, I believe you can only have a food truck inside our city limits for special events, like a one-day type environment, and we've had an individual that was set up there for weeks. And the location he was originally set up on is within the city limits.
Did he get a
And
permit?
no discussion with the city about permitting or anything like that. So I have concerns about that when we're requiring everybody else that has a business in here to do it right. At the same time, it's a stop at the place, the city. And we do have ordinances and rules and regulations in place for a reason.
Yeah, because right now we don't have a long-term
Yeah.
ability for a food truck to set up.
And we don't have the provision to issue a permit should someone apply for it. We don't have a,
How do we make that first step to
well,
get that in the
if-
ball rolling?
That's where this
yeah,
discussion tonight is.
the three questions that I think would get us started on that. Do you want to do it? Do you want to do it by a regulatory ordinance? And do you want to direct the staff to bring back the ordinance with those conditions, whether they be locational, adjacency to residential, parking, access off of
Right.
roadways, inspections, and so forth.
Well, I just
We would
pulled-
take a stab at that if it's something the council
Yeah.
wants to pursue.
Well, one of the gentlemen mentioned truck yard. I've never been there, and I just pulled it up, and it looks fantastic.
If it's,
I
Nike, is that the
mean-
one that's down there by the bridges? Yes, okay.
Yeah, I pulled up Truck Yard Dallas.
Yeah. Because I've been to that one briefly driving by it. I've also, back when I was still running, half marathons and stuff, they would set them up along that, is it the Mary Hunt Bridge?
Okay.
They set them up along there. When they're set up right,
Yeah.
they're neat. I
Okay.
mean, yeah, it's a truck, but it's done very nicely because of the requirements for cleanliness and everything else.
Well,
Around 'em.
they should have their health inspected. That, to me, that's
And they do.
one of the most important things,
They
is the
do,
health
and
inspection.
I've had the opportunity to go over and look at Fate's little area. I mean, it's a nice treat-in area where they have it close to their fire station and stuff, and
Okay.
it's done very nice. It's still, I don't want to say it's in its infancy, but you can still see that they're working on making it even better, improving on it.
Yeah.
But it's a nice little setup, and the business traffic as far as customer base is there, because when I saw it, people were driving up, parking, going up, getting stuff, and then a couple of the food trucks had 2 or 3 people waiting in line. I mean, it's something people desire. I know our citizens here
variety.
want it.
Well, and I also saw it was a calendar where I guess different food trucks
Yes.
have certain dates. So if you're wanting to know, if you're wanting to have no dinner for, let's say Thursday night, don't want to cook,
Yeah.
and you want to eat out, you just look on there Thursday and see what food trucks are going to be there, and you're like, when a winter chicken dinner, we're going to have fajitas.
Well, and I
You know.
can tell you, having seen various food trucks, maybe not all these different yards, I've seen a couple of them. I know my time as an SRO at Roy City High School, once a month, they would have a Friday afternoon at the lunch hour where the school district had food trucks come out, so the kids had an option than just eating school cafeteria food. And we'd have anywhere from 5 to 7 food trucks there. And there are food truck vendors that, not just, you've got a coffee vendor, you've got Mexican food, you've got Asian food, you've got hamburgers. There was even a food truck that was nothing but hot dogs. And then others with variations of hamburgers, with the egg in the middle and all different kinds of food. and it was good. And, you know, people have asked for that desire. And I will tell you is that, you know, you look at that, sometimes some of these food truck vendors, that's their first start
To
in
business.
business, so they can earn enough money to move to a brick and mortar store,
Well, let me ask this.
or a
Would-
brick and mortar location.
The city wouldn't necessarily be in charge of the trucks and who's coming and going, because it would be the place or the owner of that spot.
Location.
And that would be their business or whatever, they are the ones that
Yeah,
handle
we,
all of that.
we had thought of it in terms of an ordinance that would enable those to be done privately based on stipulations or requirements, as opposed to a food
Right.
truck yard that the city would operate.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't,
Yeah, I don't think we need to take
yeah,
on
we don't need to operate.
the ownership of a location
No.
and managing it. I just want to make sure that we follow everything correctly, because if we if we are having food trucks out there, one, we know we want them to have proper health inspection. Well, it's the protection of our citizens. Nobody wants to get food. And no restaurant owner wants to be known for having an issue like that, because it kills their business. So the proper regulating pieces of it without being overbearing, so that it's done right. It's like we all talked about when it comes to any kind of commercial entities here. We want businesses that are here today and tomorrow, not here today and gone tomorrow.
So what is it that we are trying to decide, whether we
We're-
want just that?
Whether, yeah,
One-
whether we want food trucks, do we want to do a regulatory ordinance over as amendment to the zoning, and then a direction to staff? Those are the three questions.
Okay, so can you help me understand what each of those mean?
Yeah, of course, the basic question is the council interested in considering food trucks in the city? Right now, they're not allowed, and therefore there are no regulations for them. Do we want to change that? Second, would you want to do that as a change to the zoning ordinance or as a regulatory ordinance?
Can
If
you
you do it
explain?
as a change to the zoning ordinance, it will have to go through basically the same process that a zoning change goes through. Have a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission, and then, should you want to change it, you have to go back through that zoning process to do that. In the meantime, those trucks that have already opened under the old rules might have what's called a legal non-conforming use and be able to continue to operate despite the fact rules are changed. So it's actually Mike Halla and Mike Coker and my recommendation that, at least from the beginning, that you ask us to look at it in terms of a regulatory ordinance, which would require one reading before the council, and that would be the same process that would be needed if you decide there's some things you want to tweak, or if it just doesn't work out and you don't want to allow them anymore, you could do that. You can do that a little more easily with a food truck because of their mobility, than you can a brick and mortar business. The third one would be, would you want to direct the staff to bring back an ordinance with our best effort at establishing conditions so that the council can look at those and determine if they're adequate or if we need more or less conditions associated with the ability to allow food trucks to operate in the city.
The first part of it is, I guess, between the four of us, are you guys in favor of food trucks? No. I've listened to people, not just in Sonoma Verde, but throughout our community, and they're all in favor of it.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
think it's
it
worth
gives them-
pursuing.
Well, it's like Mr. Hatcher said, it gives them an option, because I agree with him. I don't always want to go to Rockwall, and I don't always want to eat the same 4 or 5 favorite places. Sometimes I want a little bit better variety. That gives them a quick variety in our own neighborhoods. You know, we've all talked about community relations and keeping things within the community. It also is a focal point where people can go get something, maybe hang out with each other a little bit.
So how would we, or would it be up to us to to know that these food trucks are not there playing music till 11 o'clock at night? Or, I mean, you know, it's like, are there?
I think
will
that's
we
where
need
the
to make
regulatory
rules for
part
that?
will come.
You'd have to establish acceptable operating hours.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, and I'm with you. in the ones that I've seen, I don't know that they're operating that way.
But I'm
Yeah,
just,
but it's,
given.
but it's
like,
something we do have to look
yeah,
at.
there's gotta be some type of rules.
Correct.
Yep.
You know, so, okay.
But, you know, the first thing is, are all three of you in favor of food trucks? I know I am, listening to what our citizens have been saying.
I'm very much in favor. You know, I've seen these, my daughter was going to Baylor, and they have food trucks throughout the city.
Yes.
And because you have visiting population of parents typically going down there on the weekends, you would have overflow in the brick and mortar establishments, and there was plenty of variety throughout the city to go
Well,
and
and
eat.
you know, not every family member wants tacos, you know,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
night. So it gives a variety. Anybody can go do, I've been wanting this for a while now. There's something over in Tyler that they've got. It's not food trucks, but it is like an outdoor area that there's different small restaurants, and there's a huge sitting area where kids can play games and da-da-da. If you want tacos and you want, you know, barbecue and you want this, you all go get whatever you want and come back and sit down at the table and have a meal together, or even with friends, you know, and then let the kids play, kind of like
Standard service.
standard, except it's not just one business, it's variety. So I've been wanting this for a while now.
Okay.
So I like the food truck idea, because it'll even be more variety.
Well, I think the first question's been answered.
Yes, sir.
And I think the second question, when you were talking about regulatory, I think to get the ball rolling, I think regulatory would be the quickest option and give us some flexibility. And what was the third?
The third
Direct
one is if you want staff to
conditions.
bring back some recommendations, and I'll tell you that we've worked with, Shelley has gotten some other ordinances and some other things for us to look at. We would do that and probably talk to some other cities that have done some allowances with it. Probably talk to some stakeholders that might want to go into that business. We've had several inquiries, try to get their thoughts on it. And just really try to think about things like parking, access,
Sanitation.
residential
Mhm.
adjacency and all of that, and try to bring that back. I don't know that we'd hit everything the first time, but we work on it diligently and bring it back, and you guys can catch the things that we might ought to look at either adding or taking away from what we bring to you.
Yeah, I was,
let's- I'm sorry. Let me ask this question, because, so let's say we do the food trucks, we do the regulatory. Now, that doesn't mean that food trucks will just come in and park somewhere.
They have to have a permit, and to get that permit, they'll have to show that they're meeting the stipulations in the ordinance. So there's going to be some administrative work on that to,
And who's gonna who's gonna
well,
monitor that?
our code enforcement officer will have to take on that responsibility.
Okay.
All right, guys,
And then the
I-
permits, of course, will be issued at City Hall,
Yeah.
but in terms of, he'll have to take that, and of course, our sanitarian, Kelly will have to work through the permitting and the requirements for them to maintain compliance with the state
Correct.
law for food service.
Well, guys, I think we're all in agreement. So if there's not anybody that's opposed to it, I'm going to give direction to Rick to start the regulatory side of it. And the third one, as far as getting with some of the other cities with what they've got, what their ordinances or rather regulations that look and see how that fits for us and move forward.
We will pursue that.
what's a good timeline to expect that we hear back from?
You know, I like to just get on, I always want to get next meeting, sometimes
I would
don't
like
get
to
there
see
with
it at the next
But
meeting.
I would like to see at least, show you where we are
Straw
next
man.
meeting, even if we don't have it completely buttoned up, the progress report. Maybe we can get it, to the point where we can.
Yeah, if at all possible, I'd like to see it at the next meeting. All right, guys, if there's nothing else on that one, we'll move on to 6.2. Atmos Energy Corporation, Mid-Texas 2022 rate review mechanism filing.
Atmos Energy has filed a rate filing for the review of tariffs, translation, natural gas rate increase. And in speaking with Mr. Halla today, and sort of I also spoke with Ms. Hummel about it a little bit as well. It's Michael Halla and my recommendation that the council take an action to deny the requested rate increase. That will trigger them to appeal to the Railroad Commission, which is where it's going to go anyway. We're not a member of any coalition or group of cities that does study on that. But we'll get the same rate as those who are once that's done. So it's our recommendation that you deny the requested rate increase.
And guys, to add to Rick's statement there, this is something I believe we get every year. We get something from the various utilities about, asking for a rate increase. I will tell you that I agree with him that we deny it. But then again, as council, you're the ones that are going to make the overall vote on it. So I'll entertain a motion on this one to deny that rate increase.
I make a motion to deny the rate increase proposed by Atmos Energy through the letter dated April 1, 2022.
I've got a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So that unanimous? All right. We will now move to 7.1, adjourn to executive session in accordance with Texas Government Code 551.0712, consultation with the attorney to deliberate in a matter in which the duty of the attorney to the governmental body under the Texas disciplinary rules of professional conduct, State Bar of Texas clearly conflicts with this chapter. We're going to be discussing the Sonoma Verde pit. We also have a second one in there, adjourn to executive session in accordance with Texas Government Code 551.074A1, personnel matters to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee. This is dealing with looking into the hiring of the new city administrator. All right, the time is 6:57. We're now in executive session. See you guys in the other room. Oof, that was a mouthful.
Thank you.
If you get this message, could you give me a call?
received this afternoon, the information that I put about the cost of what it would be to have contract law enforcement here. I want to go back and look at those numbers a little more in depth to what I went this afternoon. But I will tell you that I asked that it be broke down on, kind of the best, best bet or whatever, three options. And that was done. I also had them crunch those numbers on if it was an option for us to start our own based on those numbers of what it costs for them for personnel. What would it cost us to put a stand-up along the police department, based on those numbers as well, throughout the road. And I don't want to count numbers tonight until I bring it to you at the next agenda item. But I do have all that, I'm going to crunch all that and put it together for a future agenda.
Yeah, very nice.
Other than that, if you did not have the opportunity to be here on Saturday for the egg drop, one of the most phenomenal events we've had here yet. We were a whole lot more crowded than I thought it would be, which is good. A lot of feedback from the citizens that loved it. The only thing, and it was our first ever, so it's a learning curve for us because it's the first one. So all we can do is improve from there. Was just having a few more trash receptacles throughout the area because of the amount of crowd that we have. But if that's the only thing we have a complaint on, that's a good thing. That's an easy fix.
A little bit more candy.
Yes.
A little more eggs.
Yeah, well, and maybe split it down a little bit because apparently the 3-year-olds were getting mulled over by some of the older kids in their age bracket. But that's all I have. Trudy, do you have anything? Dan?
Just a reminder, I think on the 23rd, we have that trash pickup day. So
Yes, thank you. Lorna?
I do, of course. I have two things. We had talked about having an agenda item to look at our ordinances on Article 1.02, the admin section. So I wanted to make sure that we put that on a future agenda.
Yeah.
And then our community outreach program starts up on the 2nd of May. We're going to be meeting over in the fire station in the Bay because this facility will be used for early voting. But I've heard back from the majority of the HOAs, and they are very interested in doing a community outreach, and it will start with Chief explaining about a neighborhood watch program. And so that's a really good thing that
Absolutely.
the communities are interested in. So if anybody out there is from Brushy Creek, it would be great if someone from your neighborhood could contact us because we do not have a Brushy Creek point of contact. So with that being said, that was all that I had.
All right. Does any one of you have any kind of reports tonight at all?
I will say that it won't be very long and before either I or your new city administrator will start talking with you about your budget. The number to keep in mind, it'll be a little bit different next year, probably a little more favorable, but a number to keep in mind as you think about the budget is 1 penny on the tax rate produces $62,000. Just keep that in your mind as you think about the budget.
Yes, sir. All right, what were you going to say, Lauren? Okay. All right, guys, if we don't have any other reports, announcements, or anything like that, the time is 7:20. Meeting is adjourned.